1. This happened just a few hours ago at 2 a.m. I live in an apartment complex downtown that's also filled with lots of university students. But the building also houses many of the non-university students on the top floor where the penthouses are. A little bit of background info. I'm a sort of manager and resident advisor for the uni students that live in the building. There are 3 of us, and someone is on call every night with a central on-call phone to deal with any issues that students may have. I woke up at 2:20 a.m. to someone knocking on my door. I use knocking loosely here, as the person was kicking, pounding, and body slamming my door, while trying to use the keypad to key in over and over. I quietly looked out my peephole and saw a man who seemed under the influence. At the time I was terrified that things would get worse if he knew I was home, so I tried to be as quiet as possible. I grabbed a kitchen knife, for reassurance, went to my room and started calling the person on call to help me, but he wasn't picking up. I called the person above him, area duty, and told them about the situation, but they weren't sure what to do, and thought maybe we had to call the city's police. But she said she would call around and then call me back. I would have immediately called the police already, but the last 3 times I've called them there, for other issues as an RA here, I've had to go down and badge them into the building. I was terrified of having to unlock my door and go out. So I started calling everyone else I knew in the building, 1 to get someone to see WTF was going on from the other side, and 2 to get someone to open the building door for the police if I were to call them. I called my friends, the other community managers and RAs, my supervisor, but no one was picking up. The person on area duty finally calls me back and says the higher-ups just want to have an extra set of eyes on the situation, but she doesn't have a car, so she wants me to wait until she can call an Uber. I'm terrified at this point, and go back out to my living room and see that the bottom left corner of my door has been kicked in, and the only thing keeping it from opening is the deadbolt. It's 2:52 a.m. now, and the guy's pounding and trying to key in stops. So I look out my peephole and see one of my residents down the hall talking to this guy for 5 minutes, before leaving in the elevator. I wait a minute or 2 and then come out of my apartment and go knock on the resident's door. He told me he was just about to write me a note because he thought I was probably inside just terrified. He was right. He apparently came out because the pounding was so loud and reverberating that he thought someone was at his door. The guy was trying to get into his girlfriend's apartment and didn't have his phone on him. Additionally, the passcode his girlfriend gave him wasn't working. My resident let him borrow his phone to call his girlfriend, and turns out she's directly a floor above me. The resident was always a super nice guy and gave me his number in case anything ever happens in the future. I took a look at my door and it's almost falling off the bottom 2 hinges. Considering this went on for 40 minutes, I can see why my door is in such bad shape, but also, who does this? Even if you're intoxicated and you thought it was your girlfriend's apartment, why would you try to break down the door to get in? The RA and manager on duty finally comes over to my apartment at 3 a.m. after area duty finally got in touch with them and saw the damage. I filled them in and we went upstairs to talk to the guy. The girlfriend opens the door, asks us what we want, and after asking to talk to the boyfriend, she's pretty adamant about not wanting to wake him up because he's exhausted. Okay. I show her the photos of the damage and she seems pretty upset, so she tries waking him up to no avail. But we were pretty clear that we weren't leaving until we could talk to him. He finally gets up and says sorry because he had the wrong door. He was talking to the person on duty most of the time and not really acknowledging me. He probably thought it was his room and not mine. I show him the photos and he denies that he caused the damage, saying that he only knocked pretty softly. He even demonstrated his knocking in 3 different instances during our conversation. His girlfriend is in the back and seemed pretty upset and disappointed in him. He snapped at her saying, "Well, what was I supposed to do? I didn't have my phone and you didn't pick up earlier." Apparently they just moved in on Sunday, and he didn't remember where their room was. The person on duty and I asked to see his ID and asked if we could see a picture, which he agreed to. We left, and I filed a maintenance request for the door, wrote an email to my boss and the leasing manager, and also called the police to file a report. The police came, I let them into the building, showed them the damage, and explained everything. They said it was probably an honest mistake and gave me a case number to give to the leasing manager so they can bill for potential charges. And then they went upstairs to talk to the boyfriend and girlfriend. I asked if they could give me an update afterwards, mostly for my sanity and reassurance, but they said it was unnecessary and there really wasn't anything else I needed to know. It was a terrifying experience, and I'm glad I'm alive because I thought I was honestly going to die. This had me pretty shook, and I usually would have been up at 2 a.m., but I'm trying to go to sleep earlier because I'm taking the MCAT on Saturday. I'm trying to do some last-minute studying while I wait for someone to come fix my door, hopefully today. In retrospect, I'm pretty worried for the girlfriend upstairs because the guy wasn't exhibiting normal behavior, even for someone who's intoxicated. I'm going to be extra cognizant of noises from upstairs, and I'll call someone if it sounds like there's any instances of domestic violence or abuse. 2. A while back I sorted through my wardrobe and decided to sell a few of the things that were good as new, as I am a broke college student and needed the money. The things I wanted to sell were a skirt, a pair of jean shorts, a swimsuit and 3 bras. I know that might not have been the smartest idea, but I didn't think about it too hard. When I put them up on the site to sell, the first hint that especially the bras were not my brightest idea appeared. As one of the bras was immediately taken off the site, I got an email saying that the website did not want to sell used underwear, bras and swimsuits. But as the other 2 bras and the swimsuit hadn't been taken down, I didn't think about it. I just wanted the money, and the bras were from quite an expensive brand. In the next couple of days, I got a few inquiries about the clothes, and I even sold the swimsuit. But I got the money via PayPal, and I sent the suit per package to the buyer. I thought this whole online reselling business was an amazing idea, and I was a damn genius. There was one message about one of the bras where the person asked for pictures of me wearing it, but I just didn't respond to it and thought it an anomaly. Looking back, this was probably hint number 2. One day I got a message from a person that wanted to meet up so they could try on one of the bras and the pair of shorts. I was like, yeah, you can totally come over and try them on. I don't want to sell you something that won't fit. To clarify, I live in an apartment with 6 other people, so the probability of me being alone with this person is slim to none. So we set up a meeting a week from that day at 3 p.m., a time when I know a few of my roommates are going to be there. So the day comes and I'm a bit nervous because I was brought up with the mindset of never meeting people from the internet, and also not trusting strangers. But I always think that people are good and polite, and I, in general, trust everyone. When I open the door for the person, I'm a bit thrown, because instead of a woman who I expected, because I'm selling women's clothing, there stands a middle-aged man. The username he used for our conversations could have been the name of a man or a woman. But he was really nice, and I just thought he was a cross-dresser. The next 20 minutes would convince me of the opposite. We are both very polite, and I show him the few clothes I want to sell. He asks which of the things are worn the most, and I tell him truthfully that they were all as good as new, which seems to disappoint him, hint number 3 that something is not right. He picks out a bra and the shorts, and I show him to our bathroom so he can try them on in there. While he is in there, I'm just standing in my room with my door wide open, so I can hear when the bathroom door opens. And I send a message to my sister that I have to tell her a really funny story about the online selling thing. Oh boy, I didn't know what was coming. The bathroom door opens, and I hear him calling for me. When I walk to the bathroom, he stands there, just in this tiny pair of my shorts, which are way too small for him, and he holds the bra in his hand. He is unsure of how to put it on, and I guide him through it verbally, still thinking he might just be an amateur crossdresser. But I again see a bit of disappointment when I just talk him through putting the bra on without actually touching him. We both agree that the shorts are too small, and he asks if I could fetch him the skirt I offered. After I give him that piece of clothing, I expect him to go back in the bathroom to change, but he just drops the shorts right on the floor, and I am confronted with him just being in a bra and Speedo cut underwear. A sight I cannot forget as long as I live. I try not to freak out, my brain just overwhelmed with the whole situation. While the man in front of me puts on the skirt, which fits, I kinda compliment him on the look, as I am too polite for my own good, and he is so grateful that he starts kissing my hand. I just stand there shell-shocked. When he is done with that, my brain retreated in a corner, not coping very well. He asks me something, but I can't really comprehend anything at that point. So I just smile and nod. Big mistake. He goes down on his knees, still just in a skirt and bra, and starts kissing my feet. I try to act like this is not happening. My brain resigned to this fate and just accepting the weirdness of this whole situation. When he is done kissing my feet, he asks if I would want to sell the socks I'm currently wearing and that he just kissed. I decline politely. He then asks if I have any worn dresses, pantyhose, socks, or underwear that I want to sell. I again decline politely, saying that I only sell the stuff that's up on the website. He gets up off the floor and goes, thankfully, back into the bathroom to change into his own clothes. I wait in my room, door still wide open, and try to cope. When he comes into my room, he gives me the money for the skirt and the bra, which he still wears under his own shirt. I search for the right change, kinda ignoring him at this point. He looks around my room and asks me if the shoes on the floor are mine. I say yes, more concentrated on the fact that I don't have the right change for him. He then asks if he can kiss my shoes, and at this point I'm just like, yeah, do what you want with them. I'm just gonna go to my roommates and ask for the right change. And walk out of my room. None of my roommates can help me with the change problem. But I tell one girl that the dude who wants to buy my stuff is a real weirdo. Going back to my room, not knowing what to do about the change, I hear kissing noises, and when I get into my room I see him kissing my shoes very passionately. I tell him about the problem with the change, which we figure out together, and I celebrate in my head, thinking I can finally get rid of him. When he asks if he should clean the soles of my shoes, very much just done with the whole thing, I decline with the explanation that they get so much use it would be pointless. The money and goods have changed hands at this point, so I try to herd him out of my room and to the door of our apartment. He gets the message and we start going, but then he stops and asks if I want to go for a coffee sometime. I decline and explain that I have to learn for exams the next few weeks, while in my head I just scream at him as to why he has to ask something like that, while this whole thing was crazy enough already. He seems disappointed, but finally leaves my room and we go to the apartment door, during which he tries to lay a hand on the small of my back. I just kinda sidestep him and walk faster. As we are saying goodbye, he wants to hug me, and, the nice person I am, I let him, because despite his whole weirdness, he seemed like a pretty nice and polite person himself. We hug and I just hear him sniff at me. Thinking it's now finally over, I let him go, but he hugs me again, this time sniffing the other side of my neck. Then he tells me I should contact him whenever I want to sell any of my clothes again, and he finally leaves. I haven't sold anything on the internet since that experience. Dear weird fetish dude, let's never, ever meet again. 3. I love waking up in the dark and walking the sunrise with my dogs. I didn't intend to own 2 huskies and a German Shepherd mix, but they each found me, and I couldn't turn them away. We usually jog about 5 miles daily, often in the neighborhood. But nearly as often I load up the van and drive 10 minutes to the wooded metro park. I love it there. They offer some trails that allow quads and motorbikes, some bicycles and skis, some just people. And last year they opened a new one that allows pets. It's a 5-mile loop into the area farthest from the city. We live on the northern edge of town, but in the dark with no leaves on the trees, you can clearly see the red glow of the CVS sign for most of the hike. These are tamed woods with asphalt paths, and concrete fire pits and rangers patrolling regularly. And the hospital behind CVS means there's emergency medical care in walking distance. I was up coughing again in the night. I had a serious case of pneumonia 2 months ago, and was not fully recovered when this sinus infection hit me. I'm past the fever part, so we're walking, not yet jogging again. But after being up in the night, I didn't get up in time to go walk before I dropped my kids off at school. Then my youngest had an appointment. And then I had to run a few errands. And then we had unexpected visitors right after school. And then they stayed for dinner. And finally, I got the dogs into the van and made it to the park just before it started to get dark. I was irritated at all the little things that had kept me from my walk that day, but as we drove all the way to the back of the park, I realized we'd be walking the sunset, watching it over the lake and the hills and through the bare trees. And the park was clearing out now, as it started towards dark. We would very nearly have the place to ourselves, and might not have to pull off the path to let others pass us. An amazing number of people who are afraid of dogs hike up the pet path. All those little irritations had led up to this singular moment of beauty I would not otherwise have seen and appreciated. This was going to be a really good walk. Funny how life works out when you let it. I parked in my spot at the furthest end of the parking lot by the bathrooms. A mile-long walkers or joggers only path looped through the woods and by the lake and came out by the bathrooms. I liked to run it when I came here alone. It was a glorious walk through a Bob Ross painting. My mind cleared and my thoughts quieted, and I simply experienced the woods. My feet on the path, my dogs panting, the nature sounds, the beauty of the sky. I absolutely loved it. About halfway now, and the city sounds had faded away till I could only hear the birds and frogs and insects, all singing their songs of territory and mating and life. Crack! Utter silence and absolute stillness. My dogs and I turned instantly towards the source of the sound and froze. Behind us and to the right, the sound had come from the crest of a hill. I could see nothing, and heard only the dogs panting. I waited for the nature sounds to return. They did not. All three of the dogs slowly raised their ruffs, fur standing on end all around their shoulders and necks, tails held tall and proud, making themselves look larger and more threatening. I took a step towards them, and the female husky, the leader of my little pack, instantly put her ears back and her head down and pulled me down the path. All three of them left their tails and ruffs up, but the two males also put ears back and heads down and began to pull me. So off we went. The woods were still silent. We must have startled a buck on the slope of the hill, not seen him, and after we passed he leapt up the hill and jumped a dead tree, and his hoof hit a dead branch, and the branch broke, crack, and scared everyone. Why were the woods still silent? Maybe there's someone up there. Homeless people must stay here sometimes. The bathrooms have heat, so the pipes don't freeze. This is about as far as the path goes. It would be a good place to sleep. Maybe setting up a shelter, and crack, broke a branch. Why were the woods still silent? We were about as far from the city as we could get in these woods, and you couldn't see the CVS sign or the glow from the streetlights, or even hear the traffic noises. It was dark and still, and absolutely quiet except for the panting dogs and forced sets of footsteps on the path. I wanted to run. The dogs wanted to run. Bigfoot. That was a Bigfoot breaking a log. To say get out. There are no Bigfoot in city limits, I promise you that, brain. It was a deer. The woods are still quiet because of us. I have 200 pounds of dog here, yes, they're both big huskies, and another 200 pounds of me. Yeah, I'm a little fat, but I've got good muscle underneath. I have broad shoulders that don't fit into women's shirts, and big hands that don't fit into women's gloves. I can lift 100 pounds over my head. We are the scariest thing in these woods. There's no bear. There's no wolves. There's no Bigfoot. There are deer and there are foxes, and there might be an angry raccoon, but we are the biggest, baddest, scariest thing in these woods. Unless there's someone with a gun. Shut up, you're not helping. The dogs had not stopped once to sniff or mark, heads down, ears back, tails and ruffs still held high. They just wanted to go. We'd almost gone a mile now, me craning my head the whole time, trying to see as far as I could in all directions, while letting the dogs pull me down the path. And it was still absolutely silent. Not an overflying goose, not a cricket, nothing moved, nothing made a sound. Except us. Here came the third and longest of the 3 steep hills on this trail. I had been running these to rebuild my strength and endurance, but if I ran this, I'd be blown at the top. The top where it curved around as it crested and you couldn't see anything past the thick trees. The top where if you're deeper into the woods you could follow a more gradual ridge up to the crest of the hill and wait, unseen, for someone to come up the path. Ambush. It was a deer. Turn around. It was just a deer. What if it's behind us? Ambush, deer, gun, Bigfoot. This is why I run. The noise in my head is unbearable otherwise. Up the hill, walk, pay attention, watch the dogs. The dogs were still on alert, but didn't hesitate to go up the hill. In fact, they wanted to go faster. Just walk, don't get smoked, be able to run or fight if you have to. Yeah, okay, I'm scared too. The woods should not be so silent. The dogs should not still be on alert. It's not a cat or a bear or a wolf, and I really doubt it's a Bigfoot. But it could be a person. So let's be smart, just walk. We are not good prey, the dogs will protect me. The huskies might not alone, but the shepherd will, and they'll follow his lead. Be smart and get out. Only another mile now to the lake and the first parking lot. Then another half-mile along the lake to the second lot where my van was. Hearing traffic noises now, but still no birds, no crickets, no frogs. The smell almost stopped me in my tracks, but the dogs kept pulling. Sour and grassy and oddly metallic and... shit. Shit and blood and partially digested grass. The contents of a deer's stomach. Someone hunted these woods. And the dogs were not interested in the smell. We ran. I don't remember much of that last mile, we just ran. Denza, the big female husky, finally stopped to drink some lake water as we came out by the parking lot. Then she began to sniff and pee. The boys followed her lead. There was a single truck parked. I relaxed quite a bit, but still felt on edge. Down the lake, in the next parking lot, I could see the headlights. They must be parked at the turnaround at the end of the lot closest to the lake. Their headlights illuminated the lakeside path. They're watching us. Halfway to the van now, and the car drove away. 20 feet from the van, I heard a motor coming down the nearest path. I decided to put the dogs in the car on the driver's side instead of the passenger side like normal. The sound of the motor came closer. The leashes caught on the armrest and I had to untangle them before the dogs could jump into the van. The motor came closer down the path. I had to be gone before it came out. I knew it with an absolute certainty. Finally, the dogs were in. I slammed the door and jumped in the front, fumbling for the lock button, shaking hands unclipping the keys from my jogging belt. Starting the car and gunning it into reverse. And as my headlights swept over the entrance of the path by the bathrooms, they lit up a four-wheeler coming out of the woods. I was dropping the transmission into drive and hitting the gas, and as my brain processed what my eyes saw, it informed me that there was something across the handlebars. A gun? A deer carcass? I couldn't tell, and because of the angle when pulling away, I couldn't see him in the rearview mirror at all. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 390. We will be heading for episode 400 soon, but I don't really have any plans for it this time. Literally can't think of anything. I may do a celebratory live stream or something along those lines. I have ordered something called the Mod Mic Wireless. That's quite a good sounding mic for a streaming mic. And it can attach to either the Vive or the headphones. I'm not sure what I'm going to put it on yet. And that does the job, and it means I don't have a lot of extra cabling. Plus it does have a mute button on it, so if I need to cough or fart, I don't have to stop the stream, which is good. Okay, and with that I'm going to head off for now, so until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.